This is Gotham TV Podcast, episode 56, about Gotham Rise of the Villains, episode 5, Scarification.
Hey, this is Drew Powell. I play Butch Gilzine on Gotham, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Oh man, I missed hearing that theme tune. So good to have it back, so good to be back. That theme tune, of course, is by the wonderful Mississippi McDonald, who's done the theme tune for our podcast. It's brilliant to be back. Welcome back, Gothamites. You are here with us for our first brand new episode of 2016 about Gotham Season 2, Episode 5, Scarification. We did say it last week at the start of our repost of our podcast. Thanks for all of the new listeners who've joined us since we've been reposting our episodes as they aired in the UK and Ireland. But this is our first brand new podcast since last year. If you don't remember, I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, Gothamites. I am one of your other hosts, John, and this is Gotham TV Podcast, episode 56.
Yes.
So we're well over half a century old, and is fitting for this episode of Gotham, given it was a slight period piece in parts.
Yeah,
here.
it was, yeah.
Slightly Jane Austen, moving into Sense and Sensibility.
Absolutely.
So it was great to be back. Finally, we could come on board and watch Gotham from episode 5. And yes, we did not, I repeat, we did not look at these episodes whilst we could have done. Mm-hmm. We certainly didn't. And so we are also tweeting out live every Monday at 10 p.m. As we watch Channel 5 in the UK and in Ireland, and watching Gotham as it comes back for season 2 in the UK and in Ireland.
Yeah.
And you can follow us and tweet along with us at Gotham TV Podcast on Twitter. Again, anyone has any feedback, comments, thoughts, discussion on this season of Gotham so far, send in your feedback to feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com.
Yep. Or pop us on a DM over on Twitter if you follow us. We'll follow you back and just pop us on a DM with your thoughts or questions about the episodes as they air. Really, really delighted. And it does kind of bring me to my first initial point to say thank you so much for all the people who've been keeping us going. Our last episode aired in the UK, the last episode that we saw on Gotham on 5 that we hadn't seen before. Effectively was last June. So, the last couple of weeks we've been at least able to catch up on the series so far, but this time we're back with a brand new episode, and there's just a ton of people that I want to say a quick thanks to, for keeping us entertained. Firstly, I want to say a huge thanks to Daniel Butcher and Natalie, who've both been sending us feedback about episodes and having great discussions with us while we've been off air. They've been sending us emails. Particularly Natalie, thanks very much for your discussions about Supergirl. Great fun to talk to you about the ratings for that show and about everything going on in the other parts of the DC universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just a big shout out to all of our friends now over on Twitter. Friends like Dawn, Anna, Anne-Marie DeSimone, and Bill Meeks of the Legends of Gotham. We had to turn them down twice on doing crossover podcasts with them this year because we weren't caught up in the episodes and we didn't want to be spoiled. Yeah. Also want to give a huge shout out to Mike Pierce as well, for Ben Rush, obviously Gotham on 5, to Mrs. Van Dam, Morgan Scorpion, Ricky Velez, who we got to meet at New York Comic Con and has been following us and chatting to us ever since. Been great fun. Media Shock UK, to Maya, and obviously the Gotham Addicts, who've always been there for us and have done a couple of crossover episodes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Addicts. You rock. As well as everyone else, obviously.
Yeah.
Really nice to be tweeting along with you, and it's great to get the feedback in. Really enjoyed it. It's been good fun, even though we've been off air, so to speak, as Gotham has only just returned to the UK and Ireland.
Yeah, and one final shout out. I know we've forgotten some of our friends on Twitter who've been helping us through this time, but one final shout out to Tom Calderone, who plays Cop Joe on Gotham, and has been really keeping up our spirits all the way throughout the winter and helping us get through. Been great. Thank you so much. We are now part of the Flickering Myth podcast network, which means you can pick up our episodes over on flickeringmyth.com as they get released. We'll pop them up on there. You can leave comments over there as well, which is great. It brings us a whole new audience. Really good. And thanks very much to the guys over in Flickering Myth.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
If you don't want to subscribe through there, if you don't want to see our posts on there, you can, of course, subscribe to the podcast by going to gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes for our iTunes feed, or picking us up on any other good podcast catcher. If you're more of a Google person or a Windows person, you can pick us up in Beyond Pod, Podcast Addict. You can also get us on Stitcher. Just make sure you search Gotham TV Podcast to pick up all our episodes.
Yeah, subscribe, leave a review if you can. It helps other people find the show and join us in celebrating and discussing and commenting and having some great fun about all things Gotham.
Absolutely. And some great artwork that we've seen over the last couple of months.
Big time. Well. Superb artwork.
Brilliant stuff. So, the heating's on, the curtains are closed, the adult beverages are open. We are ready to talk about Gotham. Episode 5 of Season 2, Scarification, interestingly named episode. This episode was directed by Bill Eagles and written by Jordan Harper, who wrote the second last episode of Season 1 of Gotham called The Anvil or the Hammer. You remember that one with the ogre, the big
time
final ogre episode. A brilliant, brilliant episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. So let's see what he gave us in this episode. John, do you want to give us your synopsis?
Absolutely. As the GCPD Unit Alpha go after Penguin and his money, Penguin, still blackmailed by Theo Galavan, is sent running around Gotham under Galavan's orders, as he is tasked with setting fire to a series of high-profile buildings in Gotham. These are all linked by a single landlord, Wayne Enterprises. However, as the fires burn brighter, it shines a light on Galavan's true motives, the destruction of House Wayne, as he looks to avenge a 200-year blood feud between the Galavans, once known as the Dumas, and the Waynes. As the fires burn even brighter, a new villain emerges, like a phoenix from the flames, to cause havoc across Gotham.
I was really excited and really looking forward to this episode, I must say, because this is the one that has Firefly, another Gotham villain, this time gender swapped as a female villain. So getting to see the creation of a brand new villain in the Gotham universe is always an exciting moment for this show. And obviously having as long as a break as we've had makes me even more excited for an episode. But I didn't expect to get as many connections to the comic books and to the Batman books that we got in this episode. Really exciting.
Yeah, big time, big time. It was a nice re-entry for me, actually, because I needed warming up to get into it again, and this really did.
Warming up, very good.
Yeah, exactly. I really enjoyed it. I loved the whole Firefly aspect. I loved the whole sort of historical look at Gotham back, in the 18th century. Mm-hmm. I loved seeing the old faves like Penguin and Butch. Really, really good. And seeing Captain Nathaniel Barnes really start to get into and rock into his role as the captain of the GCPD.
Absolutely.
I really loved the Merc scene in the shopping center for everything that will kill and maim you. I really enjoyed sort of his reaction as one of the Pike brothers blows up. Really, really good. Loved it.
Absolutely. Well, listeners, if you're joining us for the first time after our reposts, let's tell you how we do our episodes. We cover our episodes with choosing our top 5 points about the episode, some good, some bad. Hopefully between the two of us, we'll cover everything about the episode. We also try and pick out a Batman 66 moment, possibly a Nolan Batman moment, maybe an animated series moment, or even a Tim Burton Batman moment. There's a couple to choose from in this episode as a spoiler, I think, for my points. But John, do you want to kick us off with your first point?
I do. I am gonna have to just go straight in there with the birth of Firefly. I really enjoyed the fact that Bridget, this timid character, essentially bullied by her stepbrothers, who are really holding this over her, that, her mother was a whore, that there was she can basically choose whether she's part of the family or not. And if you're not, you're on your own. And if you are, it's just going to be hell anyway, because they're such douchebags, really.
Absolutely.
And I love the fact that she has that connection with Selena, which is interesting, and it'll be good to see how that plays out moving forward. But yeah. I really liked just how she was building the costume. It just looked really cool. I like the fact that she was essentially afraid of flames and fire.
Yeah.
And I like that it became the thrill ride. She was being played with and teased with by, her older stepbrother. Mm-hmm. And in the end, it kind of ignited something. Sorry, I'm just not going to be able to help the puns, but it ignited something in her that, she liked the adrenaline rush. She liked that whole kind of feeling. And so I really like this. And ultimately she ends up being a cop killer by the end of the episode. But that was just such a cool scene where they get surrounded, her cowardly brothers drive off, leave her alone, leave us for the cops,
And very quickly as well. They just literally just pedal to the metal, off they go. Yeah.
And she's there sort of spraying the flames. So that was excellent kind of scene, really. And then obviously Firefly kills cop Luke Garrett.
Yeah.
He eventually dies, but I love the way she just swirls the flame around his feet, kind of almost like a bonfire. So it was really cool.
Yeah, it was a really well put together scene as well. It was obviously one of my points. Sometimes our points do cross over, again, if you're first time listening to us. But I loved the scene as it was playing out, as he's attacking her, trying to get the weapon off her, and you can see the gasoline drip out of the back of the flamethrower, essentially, and it starts to set him alight very quickly. I love the scene. And I suppose the way I looked at this particular point was it was like as if it was the Cinderella story, but with flames. Maybe if Cinderella had a friend like Kat around to encourage them to take on their brothers, or take on the ugly stepsisters effectively, perhaps she would have turned into this type of character, I love seeing the power come into Michelle Ventimiglia. I think she's really done a really good role. I think she's perfectly cast. She's beautiful, timid, very much like a Disney princess almost,
Definitely.
But then suddenly becomes the really powerful woman. I love that she's building her suit. That's something we don't get to see in the show very often, where they're actually developing into this character. And yeah, I think it's just really well done. I really, really, really enjoyed the character, and really excited to know that this is the first part of a 2-part episode. So we'll see Firefly back next week as well.
Which is cool. And I mean, I'm hoping that we get to see her become even more dangerous. Like, she's enjoying the adrenaline. She's enjoying the thrill of all of this. So I'm hoping to see her even more dangerous, like sort of starting to get corrupted by the thrill and the power that she's getting from this. Interesting as well that we do know, that Victor Von Fries is going to be around.
That's right.
And will we see him building his suit? Are we going to have some kind of, ice and fire kind of Game of Thrones element where she is still around? I know this is a 2-parter. I don't know whether she is going to be killed off or whether she's going to be put into Arkham or what will happen to her at the end of this 2-parter. I hope she hangs around, and I hope that you have kind of that fire and ice storyline that could result from the fact of Victor Fries coming into the show in the second half of the season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of your favorite characters in the Firefly, and actually Fries, two of your favorite characters.
Absolutely. So I really can't wait for this.
Quite cool. And end of the day, if she gets into Arkham, she will just come out the revolving door pretty quickly. Anyway, so we've seen that a lot in this show. The least secure prison in the world, as I say.
So Derek, what's your first point?
That was kind of my first point, but I'll jump into my second point. Jessica Lucas as Tabitha Gallivan in this episode just made me laugh. I adore her, especially one particular scene where she's talking to Penguin. Just her turn of phrase with him is just great. She says, "Poor sad little breadhead." It took me a minute to catch what she was talking about, but essentially he's a bird. Obviously he eats bread. And then goes, "Whoa, chill, Birdman," when he starts to freak out. I love it. I love how confident the character is and how crazy she is. Even Theo, her brother, who knows her intimately, essentially calls out early on in the episode, "I'm running for mayor, which means I need you to take over the business and I need to know that you can handle it." And she goes, "Oh, I'm bored." He's like, I don't know whether I can take it. You're saying you're bored. You have loads to do. She's just so playful, fun, confident, and crazy. And I think, again, another brilliant piece of casting with Jessica Lucas. I'm sure we mentioned in our first 4 episodes, but I think this episode felt like a much bigger episode for her. She seemed to have a lot more to do. She wasn't a sidekick. She was out on her own doing a lot more this episode, which I really, really enjoyed.
You have hit my second point on the head as well. I actually, exactly like you've said there, I thought Tabitha, this episode in particular, was where I got a sense of her. For the first time, I got a sense of who this character was. You know, we've seen her being the sniper on top of the roof.
Yep.
We've seen her being Jerome's lackey and helping him do what Theo has asked him, sort of babysitting him, really. We've seen her schmoozing up. We've seen her schmoozing up to Barbara.
Yeah.
We've seen her, playing around with the mayor. She is definitely the cat. You know, she likes to play with toys, and here, you know, you've got Mayor James Aubrey being one of her toys, you know, the head in the box. And I think in this episode, you know, we saw her violence, which she loves, to Bundeslaw and extracting the eye.
Oh, absolutely.
We see her boredom, as you've mentioned, and also just her general kind of lazy disdain for any person or anybody that you could conceivably say is actually a threat to her. Like Penguin probably is, really.
Yeah.
And to me, that whole scene in Penguin's big sort of throne room, if you want, was just absolutely great. And to me, it was the cat and the bird.
Yeah.
It was Tweety
Just
Pie,
playing with them.
Tweety Pie and Sylvester, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really good.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And this brings me on to my first, I think, Batman 66 moment of this. She is giving off such an Eartha Kitt Catwoman vibe for me. She's really playful. She's really like Eartha Kitt. She really got that vibe about it. You know, if you were to recast Catwoman and you were, you know, jumping ahead a couple of years and Cameron B. Condova wasn't going to be able to play the part, I hope that never happens, obviously. But you would choose someone like Jessica Lucas. You would choose her to play that part of, you know, the sexy, sultry, Catwoman from the comics, effectively, you know? And that's probably part of the reason. I presume she's going to eventually mentor Selena Kyle a bit. You know, she's definitely got that style about her, that Catwoman style. She has a tail, as we talked about in one of our previous episodes. She's got the whip, which is one of Catwoman's well-known weapons. That's quite difficult to say, 3 W's. But you know what I mean? She had that real vibe about it. That's my first little Batman 66 moment. John, do you want to take us on to our next point?
I do. It is the knives in this show. We have Butch on the chopping block. We have this almost religious looking iconic 18th century knife with the Wayne crest embedded into the handle, top of the handle. And we also have, whilst it's not a knife, it looked pretty sharp, Penguin bludgeoning the messenger that comes with the bad news that all his money has been stolen. Of which, again, I think the next Batman 66 moment for me as well, whilst we're here, is twofold. That money laundering scene where they're all in their vests, their white vests and their white undies, was hilarious.
Oh,
I can understand why they were in that now, but I think, you know, I did say, why are they not wearing their clothes? But it's so they don't steal any of the money.
Exactly. So they don't strap it onto themselves. It can be seen too easily. Yeah.
But the fact that was shown seemed to me like an absolute Batman 66 moment, which was then quickly followed by the bazooka being pulled, and talk about using a massive sledgehammer to crack a nut. The bazooka being pulled to stop the police, which would have just blown everything to Kingdom Come.
Oh, it was brilliant.
Absolutely hilarious. I really just thought it was so funny.
Especially followed up with our bullockism of the week, which was "Welcome to Gotham, Captain."
Exactly.
I love Barnes's just incredulity of the fact that they've taken out a rocket launcher, and obviously, as we know, this is Gotham.
And of course, that then leads on to the Merc Superstore, which, quite frankly, is again something straight out of Batman 66 for me, where it's the supermarket, it's the hypermarket that is there but for your napalm, your bombs, your knives. And I love over the tannoy, it's coming your one-stop shop for machetes, napalm, and all the other stuff.
Yes, all your personal defense needs.
Yes. Bottles of acid, like absolutely, like really good. Brilliant. Absolutely love that. Really slapstick in that sense. Brilliant.
Absolutely. And the owner saying that it costs $300 and then sees the notes and says, it's 10% extra for dirty notes as he sees the blood covered notes being given to him. Really good. Really
no,
good
exactly. But, for me, you have here, like Butch. I mean, that was shocking. Having his hand chopped off by Penguin with a machete. I love the fact that Penguin is planning. He goes, I've sold them, the Galavans. I've sold them my paranoia. He's asked, Edwige to tell the history, and that's where we get this historical story about the Waynes and the Jamals, which is one of my other points, which I'll come into later. You see him now sacrificing, I think, Butcher's left hand, so that he really sells it to Galavan, that, this basic play of infiltrating into his hierarchy isn't sniffed out by him or Tabitha.
Yeah.
So, now I think Galavan's pretty, clever, and I think even with the handoff, he might still keep a sharp eye on Butch Gilzean.
Yes, who wouldn't?
Absolutely. But, this was really, I was like, oh my God, he just did that. What the hell? Yeah. So, that was a big moment. And
absolutely.
I say the knife and the blood feud, which I'll come on to in one of my other points. But again, I love these different points with this violence in Gotham for this episode.
Absolutely. Really, really good point. And it does kind of lead in quite well with my next point, which is Butch Gilzean and Selena Kyle. Loved that they get a little bit of time together. We've seen that she worked for Penguin. We saw that she worked for Fish. So we know they've had a lot of contact, but it's great how naturally these two characters work together. Really good to see them both on screen. We love Butch Gilzean. We obviously interviewed Drew Powell a couple of months ago. Lovely, lovely guy. And we know there's loads to happen for him in this season. He's become a season regular. We know he's got some great storylines coming up this year. But all we've really seen of him for the first 4 episodes is pretty much standing in the background, in Penguin's house, kind of shrugging the head every time he gets an order from Oswald. But now we kind of see another side to him where he's able to go out and carry out a mission for Oswald. We know that the power that Oswald has over him is obviously taken because he's not screaming about being under the influence of Oswald at all or anything like that. But the interplay between these two characters where he's chatting to Selena and asking her to help him out. She goes, I'll do it for $600. And he goes, $350, and she takes it. Then he says, well, you have to pretend like you're my friend. And she goes, well, that's another $100. Really good little interplay between the two of them. And then there's the constant mention in these scenes of the wonderful Fish Mooney, of the possible, what we know now, if you heard the last episode, what we know now, the definite return of Fish Mooney to Gotham. This all happens within the scene. It really led me to know that the shock that's going to happen with Butch Gilzean when he comes face to face with his former love, his former best friend, is going to be something to be seen. They're building up this character of Butch. He's seriously going to become quite a central character, I think, this season. Just lost a hand. You don't do that to a character if they're going to just walk off screen next week. He's now going to be working for Galavan, so there's going to be quite a big relationship with them. So I hope we're going to see tons more of this character throughout the season. And seeing these scenes where he's out with completely different characters in the city, like the Pikes, really made me even more interested in the character and see more of him.
Yeah, the scene with the Pikes was really good. I loved the tension. Again, I should say, going back to Fish Mooney, that they are Fish Mooney loyalists. He obviously was, but we do see that he is still under this kind of mind control of Penguin, where Penguin is telling him to keep drinking, just before he chops off his hand. So, Penguin, I suppose, was
anesthetizing him?
Yeah, at least he was kind of had a bit of presence of mind just to like get him slightly drunk so that he didn't feel it as much. But it seemed like he felt that chop, definitely. But no, I love the interaction between Butch and Selena. I love that she called him me and my pet gorilla as they came in to the Pikes apartment. I loved as well another cat link here that Tabitha, when he's there with Penguin in Theo's apartment, penthouse, she goes, you know how I like big macho types.
Oh,
you know?
That's great.
So if he's suddenly going to be infiltrating in to the Galavan organization, is there going to be a little bit of Kitty on gorilla action, you know, a bit of Tabitha and Butch going on? It'll be really interesting to see how that works, whether that sort of little cheekiness between the two of them will keep going. But
to bring in my own bullockism, Gotham, it's just a city full of animals, isn't it? No, I'd loved it, and always loved seeing Drew Pell in the show. Really good that he's gotten some great stuff this episode, and looking forward to seeing much more. I love that scene with Jessica Lucas. Again, really playful, really sexy. I love that Theo Galavan calls it out and goes, you're doing it again. You're scaring the help. Nice little touch. You know? John, do you want to give us your next point?
Yeah, definitely. It is the historical period piece.
Of course.
You know, Gotham goes 18th century.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was unexpected, so I kind of liked it. But actually, I loved this. I loved this backstory. I love that Galavan has kind of moved out of the shadows. You know, you were kind of wondering, what is he doing here? I love now that his motives are starting to be clarified in the show. And this very much reminded me kind of Court of Owls, where, you know, you go back into sort of a time in Gotham, you know, before Thomas and Martha Wayne, before Batman.
Yeah.
And see that all this mythology comes out from the past and the history.
And the big families of Gotham. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I thought when Edwigi was,
I love that name.
I know. I thought it was a bloke. I was like,
Edwigi, the snitch on the corner. Yeah.
I loved that. When she was explaining the story, she recognized the knife. I love the fact, that Bundeslaw as well was described, as the man who disposed of, the Wayne garbage. And that Galavan says, you're going to dish all the dirt that you have, you know, and that's what the eye is for, is to get into the safe where there is this knife, and that this knife then leads to this lovely little story about how there is this blood feud between the Waynes and the Dumas, who become the Galavans because of Celestine Wayne being coveted by Caleb Dumas, and that you have they're caught in some kind of an embrace, in some kind of compromising position, where Caleb is saying that they love one another, whereas Celestine is saying that she doesn't, and that he was forcing himself upon her. And it's that then the Waynes essentially destroy the Dumas. They not only destroy the name, they destroy any reference to them in the history and the buildings, and the lane and avenue names of Gotham, and that they're essentially banished.
Yeah.
You know, that they can no longer live in Gotham, and that the Dumas then change their name and to Galavan. And I love this. I think this is really good. I like, obviously, from the other 5 families, the 5 big families in Gotham.
Oh, yes.
You know, we hear there's the Elliots, there's Tommy Elliot, there's the Canes, so that's Barbara Kane. And then
I was wondering about that, because she has Barbara Keane in the show, but we know that there's a slight possible mispronunciation there potentially. But yeah, I would think, considering the Keanes and the Waynes set up Arkham Asylum in the show, I presume this is supposed to be the Keanes, supposed to be Barbara's ancestors.
Yeah, because as well, the Canes with Martha set up Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
There's all that story, I think, from Batman Earth 1, but of course it's also then introduced in season 1 of Gotham.
Yeah.
But then you also have the Crowns, who I don't know.
Yeah.
I've not heard of them before. There's the Dumas, obviously, who are then the Galavans here, and then the Waynes. So I don't know if anyone knows, the crowns and who they may be. It'll be interesting.
We know one of them, I think. Someone's the king of Gotham. Are the crowns just the cobblepots? Or the capplepots?
Or maybe.
He's the king of Gotham. He's got the crown,
Who have really fallen from
Absolutely.
grace. Yeah.
But yeah, I was fascinated by this. And obviously, you hear a list of names on Gotham and you suddenly get all the connections from the comic books jumping out. Fantastic stuff. And it gives me huge hope that we're going to actually see Tommy Elliot come back. There's connections between the Waynes and the Elliots here is what they're saying, that they were the central family of the city for years. So hopefully we'll see a bit of Tommy Elliot coming back later on this season, or maybe next season.
I really hope so. And what do these other families play in the role of banishing the Galavants? I mean, is it simply the Waynes, or are the Waynes so powerful that the others will never challenge them?
Yeah.
That's the way I kind of feel that it is here, is that the Waynes have always been top dog, have always been this powerful family that is so powerful that they are beyond challenge.
Yeah.
And here we now have Theo Galavan, and obviously right at the end we see that the knife is still very much sharp.
Absolutely.
We see then this religious brother coming in, Brother Creel. And, it's almost biblical what he's saying. Our followers, our brothers are in the boat sailing over. It almost feels like the pilgrimage to America. I thought it was really cool. I must say I really like this. And the fact that Bruce Wayne is really in deep trouble.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. He could become the Wayne sacrifice for the Galavants, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this was superb. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And I could just see endless possibilities here as to how this can go. And I love the fact that they're dipping their toe back into the far past, the far distant past of Gotham, and all these complex feuds and between different players in Gotham, and how that's manifesting itself now in modern day Gotham. Love it. Really cool idea.
Yep, and I've kind of got a similar point about the whole Dumas situation, which I loved because it got me really excited. The Court of Owls is one of those great stories and those great comic books recently that's brought up the history of Gotham and the main families that were involved, and this kind of the people that are puppeteering Gotham from the back end and behind the scenes, essentially, which I loved. But what I do love in here is the Order of Saint Dumas, also from the comic books. Effectively, they are the ones that created some champions who will fight their cause. It seems like Theo Galavan is one of the champions that fought their cause in the comics, in the computer games like Arkham. One of those champions is Azrael. So, big question after watching this episode, is Theo Galavan Azrael the possible champion of the Order of Saint Dumas, who will eventually try and take the mantle of Batman to become the protector of Gotham? Galavan seems to feel like he owns the city, that the city belongs to him. He's trying to become mayor of the city at the moment. Seems like he's trying to take back the streets of Gotham from the power of the Waynes. So this is a lovely, lovely nod to the comic books that he could potentially be, maybe not a costumed vigilante in the way that Azrael in the comic books is, but maybe he is trying to take back the streets of the city from Batman, essentially, from Wayne Enterprises, which I really like. I love that touch. It doesn't have to go the full path of him dressing up in the Crusade outfit with the mask and looking like Azrael in the comic books, but effectively he is doing exactly the same job. Absolutely.
And I think it also leads to a larger question of, are the Dumas then behind Thomas and Martha Wayne's murder? Like, are we really talking that, this is a blood feud? So it's the way they reference Bruce Wayne. Mm-hmm. It was like as though he's on his own now. This is a kid with his butler. His parents aren't there any longer.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting. Does this link in with the Batcave? What's happening here?
Yeah.
Is Thomas's computer going to have something to do with the Galavants and the Dumas?
Yeah.
That he is not only dealing maybe with corruption in Wayne Enterprises, but is he also, sort of dealing with these threats from this banished family because he knows that they're real. So that would be interesting. But I think it adds to the larger question. Have the Dumas, has this always been the plan? Get rid of his parents, sacrifice Bruce, and claim Gotham back for the Dumas family.
Yeah.
And avenge their fall from grace and banishment from Gotham by the Waynes. So, like, I love this. And part of me actually wants them to be responsible for Thomas and Martha. Yeah. I know it could be the Red Hood or whatever, but I actually like the fact that it could be this distant, long-standing feud.
Yeah.
I really do.
Wouldn't it be great? It would be a great touch. And as we spoke about in season 1, there's no mystery that Bruce will eventually find out who killed his parents, because the whole point is that the futility of eventually finding out the one thing that's been crushing your soul effectively. You know, it's not a problem if the character finds out who kills his parents. I think some viewers or some of the people that we talk to on Facebook and some of our listeners, who may not be following the comics, there was never any question that Bruce would find out who killed his parents. It's changed a lot. There's been many different people who've killed them over the times when the story has been retconned, or as they call it in comic books, when it's been rewritten. There's been no doubt that Bruce will find out who kills his parents. So I'm kind of hopeful, actually, that particular mystery will be solved or will have some form of resolution to it within the rest of the season. So it is possible that Gallivan's been involved at the very least.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, John, do you want to give us your final point?
I do. It is that when cheese is melted, the protein structures relax, and you have a fondue. And because
do you fondue, John?
I do fondue, and because of the low friction, you get that sensation of melted cheese in the mouth. And to be honest, I'm maintaining a cool about that, a bit like Ed Nigma.
Oh my gosh.
I really, really loved this, and I am completely with Leslie Tompkins. There is most definitely a lid for every pot. This was really a nice little kind of interjection within this episode. Mm-hmm. First of all, when he asked Leslie and Jim whether they wanted to go and have a meal together, and you get the contrasting, no, we don't, we're busy. Yes, that would be lovely. To Jim being late coming back, and Christine Kringle and Ed are kind of being all very newly in love. Yeah, lovey-dovey. Ed feeding her some cheese.
Mm-hmm. I think we've all been in that situation where either we're the couple that's a brand new couple and you're just snogging or kissing in front of everybody or all your friends, or you have to watch it and it's awkward for everybody, really. And it really fantastically played there. I think during the live tweet the other night, I think it was Morgan Scorpion who was saying that this episode is a real standout for Gotham because Ed actually looks like the most normal person in Gotham. He looks totally normal here. He's just an awkward person in love, essentially, you know. Really liked the scene, definitely.
But it was really good. And of course, as with our listeners, or maybe not, the less you have, the more they are worth. To friends, you know, that was a really nice little toast. I really, really enjoyed just these two little Enigma scenes and interjections. It was just a nice little touch.
And yeah, I really loved the scene, I must say. And it was kind of my last point. There's some other stuff that went on, which I'll probably talk about in my notes, but I also love that we have a lot of interplay here between Jim Gordon and Leslie Tompkins in their home. I love the whole setup of it where, you know, Ed kind of goes to them and says, basically, you're my only friend, Jim. Can I come and have dinner with you? Jim says no. Tompkins says yes. Brilliant little moment, you know. She's a really caring person. She sees the love between Ed and Christine Kringle. That's really good. Jim just does not want the complication of having to have Ed in his home. I love the simple kind of put down to the idea, but we're at home, which means we can't run away.
Yeah, that was excellent. That was really
good. I love the interplay between the two. And obviously, outside the TV show, these two are dating. And you can kind of tell now, they seemed quite awkward. I think we talked about in season 1, they seemed a little bit awkward because he was coming off the back of acting alongside Barbara Keane, who was going a bit mental and then fell into the arms of Leslie Tompkins. You can kind of see now that the two of them must be dating in real life. There's so much more chemistry between the two of them, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't bode well for the comic book version of Jim Gordon, who eventually gets married to a person called Barbara Keane. Maybe Leslie Tompkins changes her name or something, but yeah, I really like these two on screen together. I think they have so much chemistry, and it's been really, really good and really fun, particularly in this episode to see. She's so caring and so nurturing of Jim. She has that great moment of saying to him, you know, you're getting so much respect in the city. The mayor is asking you to endorse him, and you could take this on board and you could use it. You could actually see this as a point of pride for yourself.
It'd make you happy.
Yeah, you could actually make yourself happy here. But you're choosing to go, oh, but I don't want to be someone that endorses candidates, you know, which I love, because eventually he's going to become commissioner. That will be one of the central roles that he has, is to endorse candidates and endorse people around him. So I think that's really
he does ask, and will give Galavan endorsement as well.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, Jim is making deals with devils all over Gotham. He's got it with Penguin, and now he's doing it with Galavan.
Yeah.
Basically saying that, you know, with the new breed of villains, we need all the resources here, not just firearms, but we need to be able to get whatever we need. And that requires a strong mayor who is going to give it to us and not hold back. And Galavan is like, yeah. And I love James Frain's cheeky little grin as he realizes that he has hook, line, and sinkered Jim Gordon into an endorsement here. Like, really, a nice little sly little grin as he leaves the GCPD. Really good. Really
he's
good.
Such a politician. We're about to go into a general election in Ireland in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm expecting to see quite a few people that look and sound like Jim Galavan standing up on screen over the next couple of weeks. Really good.
If only it was that dramatic.
He's kind of similar to Trump, though, isn't he?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Trump is Trump, and we will and see what happens there.
Anyway, we can't vote in that election, but I think that about does it for our 5 points for this episode. John, do you have any notes that didn't fit into the 5 points? Any little touches?
I think it was more a point that I forgot to include in one of my points, but I did absolutely love the transition from Butcher's hand being chopped off to Bullock and Jim in the stakeout car, where Bullock kind of is like sniffing the air going, ooh, smells like onions. Mm-hmm. I just assumed that a chopped off hand smells like onions as they're in the car, and he goes on to say, you know, half of good police work is sitting on your ass, eating you know, good onions and a hot dog. And yeah, really good. I just loved that transition because it felt as though it was all to do with Butcher's hand being chopped off. Really
Absolutely. Good. And that's also a reference back to earlier on in the episode, which I loved, where Harvey says, oh, I guess we're going on a stakeout. I'm getting the donuts. And Jim tells him, do not get a chili dog. And I love that he's sitting in the car sniffing the chili dog, which is a great little touch. Harvey Bullock, he's just been great. And Donald Logue, as always. Yeah, really, really good little moment.
So Derek, have you got any notes?
A couple of little touches throughout this episode that I loved. The opening of the episode as Bundeslaw's eye is removed by Tabitha Galavan. Just one great moment from James Frain. It's just his eye and his face acting, where he's watching the surgical procedure happening in front of him. It's fantastic acting. James Frain is brilliant. Just a bit of face acting just to go, ooh, oh gosh, I didn't realize she was going to do that. Brilliant. Really, really good. And also a huge call out for Leo Fitzpatrick, who plays the senior Pike brother.
Big time.
So he's well known for the movie Kids, which was also the starting point for New York actress Rosario Dawson, who we've been covering over on Defenders TV podcast in both Jessica Jones and Daredevil. So nice little connection between those two characters. And he's also even better known to fans of TV shows
from The Wire.
From The Wire,
with Bubba.
Absolutely, yeah. He was great in that show. Lovely to see him here. And I think he plays a great part, a really sleazy older brother.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. And I reckon he's probably going to be dead in the next episode.
Really?
Yeah, because he's left her.
Yeah.
She's like now really cheesed off with him. She's going to toast him. she's going to fondue him.
Aye, interesting. Yeah, I just saw the two of them drive off into the sunset. I'm not too sure whether we're going to see them back next week, but yes, the cool part about this is next week there is part 2 of this great little arc. This is quite similar to the way that it introduced Scarecrow last season, but at least this time we see the development and creation of the characters. So that's quite cool. We see a character put on the supervillain outfit, become the villain, take on the power. It was quite cool. I think that's everything about this episode. John, overall, did you enjoy this episode?
I really liked it, actually. It was good to be back in the world of Gotham.
Absolutely.
It's crazy, it's nuts, it's gothic, it's dark. I really enjoyed seeing Firefly come to life. I loved the fact that Galavan's motives are now up front and it's personal. It was great to see Tabitha get a more screen time and to get a feel of her character more. It was really, really, really good. And I can't wait to see the second part of this 2-parter, really.
Yeah.
For me, I would definitely give this 4 Merc stores out of 5. It was explosive. It was great to see Firefly. It was great to see all of these different elements come together, and it was really nice to see Galavan's motives. I mean, for me, that is the big thing here in this episode.
Absolutely.
Is Galavan shows his cards to the audience, at least, and of all the characters in Gotham, the one with the most between the ears, Oswald Cobblepot, is also onto him. And the thing is, it's just the way Oswald looks for that weakness. This is emotional to him, therefore it's a weakness I can get at him. And I can't wait to see how that pans out. Penguin has got his entry point now to bringing down Galavan.
Yeah.
I hope it's not quick because I'm really enjoying Theo Galavan as a character. But this was excellent.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to see what Selena and her pet gorilla do next week.
Absolutely. And I loved the little touch at the beginning of the episode as well. I forgot to mention it in our points, but I loved the little touch with Theo Galavan calling Oswald Cobblepot old friend. And Oswald goes, "Oh, we're friends, are we? Oh, it's just a
turn of phrase.
Just a turn of phrase. Lovely.
You're my tool."
Touch. Yeah, lovely little touch. I don't rate episodes, as you know, which just basically means I say that and then rate one every 4 or 5 episodes. So
sometimes you do. Sometimes you break that. Yeah.
If I was to rate this episode, I would probably give it 4 burning eyeballs out of 5. As well. So I think we're about the same level. This is one of the best episodes really so far this season. I was kind of hopeful that this episode was going to be really good because it was introducing quite a big character in the comic books.
Absolutely.
Quite a well-known character, definitely.
And they did it really well.
Didn't
I
they?
mean, I loved the introduction of Bridget and just that timidness turning into a fiery, adrenaline-filled murderer, cop murderer. I think she's still going to be kind of scared in the next episode. I really can't wait to see the development of her into a more dangerous character.
Absolutely. And as for the gender swapping, really doesn't matter.
No, not at all.
She's done a really good job as the character. I don't think it really matters whether Firefly is male or female. I really like the idea that this is a good character and there's a really good setup and a really good origin story.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think with that, we can move on to our feedback.
So the adult drinks have been refreshed. We are sitting down in front of the fireside of Oswald's hideout. Time to hear from the listeners.
Hello, listeners.
Hello, listeners. Our first piece of feedback came in from Paul Edwards over on Twitter. He says, question for the podcast. How do you think the relationship between Captain Barnes and Gordon will develop? My thoughts are that he will make the GCPD into more of an effective force to deal with what they're up against. But there is only so long those tactics can work, and Jim will take some of this with him through his career, if legitimate. But I've got a thought that he's working his way in to gain the trust of the department, and he's corrupt, perhaps linked with Theo Galavan.
I thought that was a really, really good point. Thanks, Paul, for that direct message on Twitter. I think the idea that Captain Barnes, who is kind of, he's Ten Hut, he seems to be fairly straight down the line kind of guy, from right, from wrong, that actually behind that front, there is a more complex, more devious character who is in cahoots with the Galavans. I think that would be a really great little twist on that character, that he's not just this kind of simple soldier from or Jarhead that we're led to believe.
Yeah.
That actually he's a plant in the GCPD by the Dumas or something like that, and he is working towards the same goals, which is Galavan as mayor, the destruction of the Waynes, and maybe bringing the GCPD under the control of the Galavans, just as much as Theo Galavan is doing with Jim Gordon.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting little idea and twist. So thank you so much for that, Paul. Yeah.
A really interesting idea. I really do love Michael Chiklis as this character in the GCPD. I think he's doing a great job. I love how, as I said earlier on in the podcast, how incredulous he is about how Gotham is as a city and how weird it is and how crazy the villains are and the bad guys are. So I'm not too sure if he's a plant from Galavan, but that could also explain maybe he is someone that's been shipped in by Galavan to replace effectively the captain that he had killed by Jerome. Maybe that is the play here. Really interesting thoughts though, Paul. Thanks very much for that. If you want to send us feedback on Twitter, just obviously follow us on DefendersCast and you can pop us a direct message and tell us your thoughts about the episodes as they go. Our next piece of feedback comes in from Natalie. She starts out with, "Oi, brutal episode. Only one body. Rest in peace, Officer Garrett, but 3 body parts severed." Absolutely true. Didn't really mention it, but obviously the other body part that's severed is in the flashback sequence, where the former Galavans, the Dumas,
Caleb Galavan, or Caleb Dumas, or Dumas,
loses an arm. Yeah. She goes on to say, "At the risk of being proven roundly wrong yet again, here are my new predictions for how the season, or at least the Galavan arc, will end." She says, "In the next few episodes, Bundeslaw gives Galavan information on Wayne Enterprises' dirtiest dealings that can be confirmed and revealed. Galavan releases this in an attempt to destroy the Wayne family's vaunted reputation. Gotham and Bruce are suitably shocked, but what Galavan does not know is that Bruce has his father's files on even dirtier and more corrupt activities. Lucius should have the computer fixed in time for Thomas' files to confirm what Galavan reveals. At the end of the season, Galavan succeeds in kidnapping both Bruce and Alfred. Alfred should be safe, as the Galavans do not have a beef with the Pennyworths, only their employer, the Wayne family. Besides, someone should live to tell the tale. Sometime after Galavan's scenery-chewing villainous rant against the Waynes, but before he successfully kills Bruce in a dark, ritualistic purge, Bruce's training and his natural resourcefulness will kick in. Note that this makes a nice bookend and contrast to when he was held hostage by Jerome in episode 3. Bruce and hopefully Alfred should be able to fend off everyone until the cavalry in the form of both Penguin's goons as well as Gordon and the GCPD arrive." Really interesting thoughts here, Natalie. And by the way, this is Natalie that we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. Thanks so much for your emails. Just to point out, this email was sent on the 21st of October, 2 days after the episode aired. So if any of Natalie's predictions do come true, she's not being spoilery. She's not seen any further episodes. So these are her predictions and her predictions only. And I love them. Really.
Yeah, this is really cool. Thank you, Natalie, so much. I kind of hope it comes true, really. I really do. Because I really wondered about that as well. And we brought this up about the idea that what is in Thomas Wayne's computer, does it link to something from their real distant past and the feud between the Waynes and the Dumas?
Yeah.
Is it that he's got just as much corruption on the Wayne board as Bundeslaw does? So that would be a really nice way of bringing it together.
Yeah.
I really want to see how Silver St. Cloud is going to work into this, because I think ultimately maybe she will actually fall for Bruce.
Maybe.
And maybe warn him or something like that. But definitely, that's a great idea.
Yeah, Silver St. Cloud, of course, another instrument or tool of Galavan. Really, really good. Thanks very much for that, Natalie. It is really nice of you to send them that email. That's the major point of your email. But you did follow up with an addendum, listeners, and Natalie says, "I spent all that time crafting my thoughts and I forgot how to count. It's 2 bodies in this episode, not 1. I don't know whether you can call the Pike brother who exploded a body, can you? It's definitely nothing left behind. It's just bits and pieces of Pike everywhere.
Pork scratchings.
Pretty much. She also says, you've got to love the barely legal store called The Merc. On one hand, it's ridiculous
Big
enough
time.
to fit in with the comedy stylings of Batman 66. John,
Yeah.
nailed it on the head. On the other hand, in Gotham's noir world, it is highly telling that the proprietor has good enough business to maintain a warehouse-sized store and brand it like any other legitimate large store. Makes you wonder how much of their business is from paranoid, law-abiding citizens and how much is from outright crooks like the Pikes. Thanks very much for that, Natalie. Really good to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Natalie.
And we have one final piece of feedback from our friend Daniel Butcher from Welcome to Level 7 podcast, the best podcast about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., really, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you so much for sending these pieces of feedback in to us while we were unable to watch the episodes. This particular piece of feedback is subject titled Episode 5, Don't Open Until 2016. So we're just opening it now, directly on this podcast, reading it for the first time. John, do you want to read it away?
Absolutely. It says, no, seriously, don't read it. I warned you. Move along. Nothing to see. Oh, sorry. That's his warning. So, he's playing clever here, Daniel. Even if we were tempted to open it, we would go straight into, nothing. But moving on. Oh man, I can't wait for you guys to react to what happened to Butch. Poor Butch.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Is this the MCUing for Firefly? Could well be.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. I think it's more the DCUing of Firefly.
Yeah.
I think you're crossing the streams there, Daniel. This is the...
Don't cross the streams, Daniel.
Absolutely.
Don't cross the streams. Those are some rich, deep Gotham names. They could almost make a court wink wink. Well, these soldiers are coming, and I assume they won't be the League of Assassins. Will they be Talons?
Oh, yes.
Very, very interesting.
Nice reference to the Court of Owls there, Daniel.
Yeah, and Earth 2 Selena is an advocate for women in slavery, violence situations. Is our young Selena channeling this? That's a really good point because she makes that point absolutely to Bridget, the Firefly to be, as we find out that she's not a true blood family member of the Pikes, that she is, in a sense, adopted, a stepsister, and that she says it's better off to be free and lonely than in a family and a slave. So really, really good point, actually.
Yeah, I kind of misread your email there, Daniel. What I saw was a woman that Selena in Earth 2 is an advocate for slavery and violence. I presume I've completely misread that, and it's actually a person that's trying to release people from slavery and violence. So Earth 2 Selena is a really good character, not a really evil character, is basically what I was taking at it from the first time I read your email. Thanks very much for that feedback, Daniel. I was obviously wrong there, but yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah, big time. Actually, Court of Owls, we've always wanted to have the Court of Owls come up in this version of Gotham. The brothers coming across the ocean, sounds very Talon-esque. Even with, Brother Creel with his monk-like outfit, the fact that it was hooded and he was by the fire and that whole silhouette, that kind of looked Talon-esque and the Court of Owls, in the shadows. So let's hope. Fingers crossed, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this was one of the other points of this episode that really kind of stood out, is the possibility of what's coming. Like really, really good.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Daniel, for that feedback.
And thank you everybody for your feedback so far. And thanks for keeping us entertained over on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at DefendersCast as we live tweet the episodes that are broadcast in the UK and Ireland on Monday nights at 10 p.m. GMT. We'll live tweet over there. Just follow.
It's not gin and tonic.
No, it's not. It's Greenwich Mean Time, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. You can follow us.
GMT.
Yes. You can follow us at Gotham TV Podcast over on Twitter. If you want to send us in your written feedback, really good to get us. If you direct message us on Twitter, you can also follow us on Facebook at Gotham TV Podcast. Find our group or our page on there, which we've just set up. So there's not that many people on it just yet, but just find our page on there and follow it. Or you can also send us feedback to feedback at Gotham TV Podcast. We love getting your feedback. We are delighted to be back podcasting about Gotham.
And remember to subscribe and listen to the podcast, and head over to gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes. Or, as Derek said earlier, if you're a Android kind of a person, then get over to
Like me.
like us, then get over to a good podcast catcher such as Beyond Pod, Podcast Addict, Player FM, search Gotham TV Podcast, and subscribe and leave a review where you can. Every review helps us find new listeners. So again, thank you so much for listening, and we will be here again next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Share us with your friends as well. If you've enjoyed our episode of Gotham, if you've enjoyed the reviews, and if you've enjoyed the interviews we've done over the past year and a half now, share us with your friends. Tell everybody about us. We love getting feedback, and we love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much for listening. And as always, the less you have, the more they're worth. Cheers to friends.
Absolutely. Take care, good friends.
And see you next week. That's
Bye.
awesome to say.
Absolutely. See you next week. Bye.
Thanks for being a Butch supporter. Butch loves you, baby.
She is giving off such an Eartha Kitt Catwoman vibe for me. I loved it. She really is playing the part. I'd say, if you cast Catwoman again as an older... I love that Charlie, our cat, is in the background. I'm not going to keep that in.
I thought that was so fun. Catwoman. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. We've got to keep that in there a bit.
This has been a Flickering Myth Podcast Network production. For more information, head over to flickeringmyth.com for more shows like it. Find this show in iTunes by searching for the podcast name, and head over to youtube.com/flickeringmyth to subscribe to the Flickering Myth movie show. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye bye.